Kia ora, church. It's good to be back. Staring at you on the screen. Getting used to this. No, I'm not getting used to this at all. I really enjoyed seeing a few of you at the prayer meeting last Sunday night. Just actually being able to talk face to face, get some feedback was quite nice, and especially seeing Anthony there. That was really cool too. So, welcome back to Sunday morning service in a slightly different style. Together apart. Well, what an interesting time in history to be living, eh? COVID-19. This is a story we'll be telling our grandchildren. We'll be talking about level 4 and level 3, and the kids will be staring at us thinking, what are you talking about? And at least we know that we're going to get through to the other side. Today, I want to do a quick therapist look at thriving through COVID-19 from a Christian perspective. So I just want to acknowledge that the past several weeks have been tough. The fear, the uncertainty, the anxiety that everyone has been feeling, it's real. While there are many experts around to help with your physical health, go and see a doctor if you need to, I want to focus a little on your mental health and on your spiritual health today. I often hear a sense of depression from being felt by many. It's true, we've all been feeling it. And what we're feeling is, in simple terms, grief. Grief for the life that is gone. The life that we knew is over. There was a pre-COVID-19 world, and now there's going to be a post-COVID-19 world. I remember back to 9/11. For you young fellas, 9/11 was when planes crashed into buildings, changed everything. Terrorists suddenly became a horrible enemy that they weren't before that stage. We lost our innocence at that stage, and the world wasn't the same. And I think COVID-19 is going to do far more change to how we operate than that one ever did. So you're feeling that grief now, and we're all feeling that grief. It's a loss of normality, a loss of connection, a loss of safety. Then there's a future grief, being really uncertain about the future. The fear for the economic toll this may have, the fear on our loved ones and their safety. And what the human mind has a tendency to do at this stage is to catastrophize everything, to go to the worst possible scenario. And that's traumatizing. It's emotionally, psychologically, and physically is just exhausting. It looks to me that you've maybe been experiencing, or we've been experiencing, the traditional phases of grief. First, there was denial. Now, much of our country was in denial that there was even a real serious problem at the beginning. And I know I certainly was. Then we started this bargaining thing for a week or two. We're like, oh, it's okay, I'll give up this, but I'm not giving up this, or I'm definitely not giving up that. And we tried to make sense of this world, and suddenly they closed the borders, and level 2 got announced, and 3 and 4 came swiftly upon us, and the reality hit us. I think a condition of sadness has come out of this, and we've all been moving through that at our own pace. Some are struggling with depression, some are struggling with anger, and we're all moving through that phase at this stage. Ultimately, they tell us the goal is acceptance. And that's to accept the new reality, taking back control of what we can do and realizing what we can't control and leaving that alone. Today I'll reference, Today I'll reference how to use the Bible to shape our new COVID-19 world and our experience in this lockdown, and so that we can progress into the future in a healthy space. I do want to repeat my earlier sermons and my mantra for the boys that it's okay to feel. It's actually really useful for you and your family to feel and to go through these phases of grief. So how do we live from a biblical perspective? I turn back to the Bible for my answers, and when I head back to the Bible, what I often do is I go to my really simple starting positions in the Bible, and one of those is when Jesus summarized the entire law into 2 sentences. To love the Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, your soul, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And that is the basis of what I want to talk about today. I think it's incredibly useful for us as we go through this COVID-19 crisis. So love God. This means communicating with God, prayer, as we often call it. At this stage, I think it's talking to God about how frustrated we are, how angry, upset, scared we might be, all of those emotions that come through the grief that I've been talking about. It can be some of the good stuff, the happy, the celebration, the really positive stuff. It can be gratitude for God all those little things in our world that are going well. When I think of talking to God, I'm drawn back to the good old King David in the Psalms, where he starts off, God, you are amazing. Then goes down with those tricky pieces where he's stuck in a cave, he's hiding away from his enemy, and he doesn't know if he's going to survive. And he's just calling out for God for help. Why do they get so success when he feels like he's failing so much? But then he comes back again and praises God and gives him gratitude and just, God, you've got this. I know you've got this, God. I know that we're going to come out the other side and this is going to be a better place. So I encourage you to have these really honest, raw, honest conversations with God. And by doing this, we'll be able to connect back with him and move forward in a really healthy way. I pray a list. I'm praying with the elders, going over everybody in church, and that's easy. But I don't have my routines in place. And my challenge for you guys is to be honest, create some routines and find a way to talk to God. Also, of course, we've got the prayer meeting tonight. Come hang out with us. We'll do a bit of prayer there. And I think we're mostly socialising, to be fair, but we'll find out when we get there. If you don't have time, it may be that you're reading too much of the news. We're all trying to stay on top of things, and you probably don't need to read more than one article a day to find out the latest toll or something like that. And far fewer social media updates. So a bit less Facebook have been really good for me. Actually, just getting rid of a whole lot of that stuff has been really useful to make space. The second part of this verse is love others. When I hear this mentioned by people, mentioned by counselling sorts, people like myself, what we talk about is the only way you can love others like you love yourself is if you love yourself first. And I think it's a bit of a stretch, but I think the point is really accurate and true. When I look to Jesus to find out where he's going to say, look after yourself, and he doesn't. But when you look at his life, he's constantly looking after himself. I see him retreating with his disciples to the higher places to get away from everything that's going on, to have time with just him and those around him. I look at him, at the cross. Before the cross, he's at the Garden of Gethsemane, just in tears, talking to God, just trying to sort this whole thing out. He takes really valuable time there. He's with his disciples, probably his best mates, in all fairness. They're eating, they're drinking, they're having a really good time. He is taking self-care before one of the hardest moments in his life. And the whole of the Gospels show a story of him taking care of himself. And I think it's really valuable. It's a great example. Another great example, of course, is the shortest verse in the English Bible. Jesus wept. He just weeps. That's not like a nice media sort of tear coming down the side by our politicians. That's the term people call ugly crying. It just all came tumbling down. He wept, I suspect, uncontrollably. His emotions flooded through his body. Now, if we're to love our neighbours as ourselves, I think it's really important to follow Jesus' lead at this stage and take care of ourselves. Allow the stuff to go through our body, through our systems. I believe God created it that way, and we need to take care of that ourselves. So be sad and be connected to other people. I believe this is a chance for us to thrive as Christians. That scripture, how will they recognize Christians? And it's because we love one another. John 13:35. We, of course, need energy to do this, people. So, church, get yourself healthy. Get thyself healthy. That sounds far more biblical. So let's go to your neighbour and love your neighbour as yourself. So who is your neighbour? I'm going to skip the whole parable, but we know it. And at this stage, the first place I think of as my neighbour is my bubble. Those people in my bubble, those around me, that might be a flatmate. In my case, it's my wife and my children. I know other people have their mothers and fathers, all connected to them in the bubble at this stage. My great revelation in recent days is that constant time, like continual constant time with those people in your bubble, is quite a lot harder than you expect it to be. And a lot of little issues that have been bubbling up for a while, suddenly it's like fertilizer's been thrown in the garden. A whole lot of little issues become really big issues really fast. And I guess it's a great opportunity to deal with the issues, sort things out, and make yourself get to a better place. My family, things have been really hard. I'm doing the whole homeschooling game, and it's not something I intend to continue at the end of this. It's a bit hard work, to be fair. So what I want to say in short is make time to sort out these issues. Get advice if you need it. Get some professional advice. Go online to get some advice. I know actually professionals are all out there working, doing Zoom meetings, and me, I'm doing phone calls. Call a friend, call your home group, get in touch with some people around you. My challenge is to have conversations with those people in my bubble that have been challenging, and I don't like doing that, but I know that having had those conversations, my family is in a much healthier, happier place than it was a week ago. So I challenge each of you to do that. Take the time to discuss issues with those people. You loved them before now. You still love them. So invest where you need to invest. That's the first level of your neighbour, is your bubble. I think the second is to look further, look beyond the bubble, wherever you can find to connect with others at the moment. One example is when my wife gave her phone number out to a bunch of our neighbours. She just dropped it off in the envelope saying, if you need anything over the stage, give us a call, we'll drop things off. Quite a few of them are a bit in the elderly range, so they couldn't shop. So we've done a few drop-offs of food, we've gone and bought a few things, or she has, to be fair. But she is being a really great neighbour, and it's a good idea to consider. Excuse me for a second. Call old friends, connect to your home group, connect to people around you. Be connected wherever you can, and be supportive to those people around you. I remember Jenny's talk a few months ago where she just listened to God, and God says to her, Jenny, phone this person or call this person, and she did, and that was over. But for the other person at the end of that line, their world had been changed. Or we believe it had been changed. You can even give advice to these people if they ask for it. If they don't ask for it, don't give advice. Offer support, help, understanding. I'm sure you can find a way to to be a great neighbour. Now, to conclude, I want to tell you a slightly different story. It's a story of a dad, and a dad trying to connect to his child in a different way, where he listens to his daughter's feelings as opposed to solves all the problems like we are programmed to do in many ways. So the COVID-19 issue is finally reaching our shores. I'm going back probably about 6 weeks. Suddenly, this little girl started playing up, and she kicked her brother in a way that nobody kind of had seen coming. It's just not her natural personality. So later on, the dad went to her and said, "Hey, what did your brother do to get kicked like that? I didn't see anything happen." And the daughter looked up, a bit nervous at the beginning, and then she quietly said, "Nothing." Dad froze and thought, "Oh, okay, let's give her a second." And as a few seconds passed, she said, "Actually, Dad, I'm really scared of this disease that's coming, Lord. Dad, I don't want to die." And it was a real shock. So as dads want to do, we wanted to explain that wasn't a real issue and that she had to get over it really fast and not be afraid. But instead he went to the feelings instead, and he reflected back, "Are you scared you're going to die?" And she just looked at him, and she burst into tears and wrapped her arms around him and just hugged him and cried and wept. I guess it's a great version of the story. And wept really intensely and just kept stating what she was scared of. And the father reflected it back without going to, "This isn't such a scary thing for you at this stage." And she cried. About, I think, 20 minutes later, the conversation sort of drew to that natural end where her emotions seemed to be all out on the table, and the shirt was saturated, and everything had kind of gone through. And he offered his daughter, would you like to hear a different angle on what's going on? And her eyes lit up a bit. She's like, "I would love to." So for the next 20 minutes, he explained how the risk of children dying from COVID-19 is really low, if not impossible. There's no examples. Who knows what the future tells us, but at that stage, there were no examples of kids dying. Anyone that was healthy would remain healthy at that age, and they weren't the vulnerable ones we were trying to save. And again, this conversation lasted a good 20 minutes, and at the end of it, everything just seemed better. The next day she came back and she had more questions, but they were really head questions. What about this? Or what about this? Her heart was healed and in a much better space. It's a great story of a dad dealing with feelings more than the academics, and I've lost my place in my script, so I'm just going back down here. Take the time for yourself and for those around you to move through the feelings. This girl has learnt more about grief and handling her emotions than I think I have up until this stage in my life. She'll come out of lockdown stronger and more resilient. She's faced her fears, really honestly faced her fears. She's moved through her emotions, I guess, and her grief. Go her, I'm a little bit jealous. I'm reminded of the scripture. I'm reminded of a scripture. I told this story to somebody else, and he brought up the old scripture, God did not give us a spirit of fear. And I really believe the girl didn't didn't have a spirit of fear. A spirit of fear is fear that lingers and stays with us for a long period of time. In her case, fear came upon her. Yep, it's an emotion, God-given emotion, but she moved through it, and she came out the side without a spirit of fear. Use the skills and the ability that God's given us to move past these things. Now, as I conclude, we will meet together again when it's safe to do so. I look forward to those days. Obviously, this evening you can meet again at 7:30 and we can have a conversation then. And I would ask for anyone who's doing this on Facebook to write a little comment of something you've got out of what I've said today. Or if you've got any questions or challenges, chuck that down on Facebook. I see quite a few people do watch these spiels. I know I'm not alone as I stand here talking to you, but it'll be good to have some feedback for me. Otherwise, I guess my challenge to you is to be church. Be church in the community today. We're not going to gather in a building, but we're still being church in our families wherever we are. And there you have it. See you tonight.